welcome to Stillspeakpod. I was going to be bringing you a story of a missing 3-year-old little boy, and I had my notes ready, and I was going to record it later in the day, like I am right now. Then we had some breaking news after I was finished, and we got the ending to that story, and it was good breaking news. And so I thought about it, and I was like, I'm going to tell the story anyways, because it's a story of hope. And it's also a story that we can learn from and apply to future cases. So instead of me bringing you a missing person story, I am now bringing you a recovered person's story. So 3-year-old Christopher Ramirez went missing on Wednesday afternoon in Texas after his family returned home from running errands. And his story actually has a lot of things in common with the case of missing Summer Wells. I've covered Summer's case on this channel. If you've not heard those, there's about 10 episodes because I was very passionate about Summer's story. So take a listen to those. But Christopher allegedly disappeared while his mother and grandmother were unloading groceries from their car at around 1:30 p.m. on Wednesday. Christopher was playing with a dog outside the home in Plantersville, Texas, and he ended up chasing the dog out of sight of any adults. The dog came back, but Christopher didn't. His mother and grandmother, along with some of the neighbors, searched for Christopher for about 20 minutes before alerting authorities. More than 150 law enforcement officials from several agencies, as well as search organizations and volunteers, helped to search for the missing 3-year-old. They did not receive any tips through 911 calls or throughout the dispatch center. And that was hard to hear because in the Summer Wells series I shared research that showed the credible tips usually only come in within the first few days. And during a news conference on Thursday, Christopher's mother pleaded for help in finding her son. She said that she actually believed that somebody took her son and was hiding him. And I took this as she meant that he entered a wooded area after chasing the dog and then was, taken by somebody, which would be a crime of opportunity. And people were not understanding why there were two stories. One being that he ran into the woods after the dog, and 2, that he was abducted. I took it as the mother was trying to say it was both. Search parties inspected several water tanks and reservoirs in the area. They also did ground searches with canine units, and they surveyed the area with drones and helicopters. Investigators also reviewed surveillance footages from nearby homes. A pond in the area had been drained as well. Searchers expanded their grid slightly beyond his subdivision on Friday. And it was said that Christopher was last seen wearing a bright green shirt with shorts and red Mickey Mouse shoes. He's 3 feet tall and he weighs 45 pounds, and the boy spoke English. Okay, so we got that report, and to go into a little bit more detail, allegedly it was Christopher, his mom, and grandma, and they returned home from selling food in Magnolia, and the adults were unloading the car, like I said, around 1:30 p.m. Wednesday, when the mother realized that he had been about 2 minutes, she said, since she last saw her 3-year-old. And their neighbor had told her they saw Christopher chasing the dog down the road. And when she got that information is when she ran off to search for him. And the neighbor is elderly. So most people were thinking, why didn't she stop this boy when she saw him taking off? And I would say that it's probably because she's elderly. Because if I'm seeing a 3-year-old child by themselves, I'm going to be looking around for a parent. And if I don't see a parent, I'm stopping that child until I do see a parent. But this might be the case of this woman could not physically stop him. The Grimes County Sheriff deputies, FBI agents, and Texas game warden officers, helicopter crews, and dozens of Texas EquuSearch volunteers searched through thick woods near the family's home. And they said that, wildlife wasn't the only concern. There were also deer and coyotes and timber rattlers and water moccasins in the area. And 2 registered sex offenders lived in the area as well. They had been checked out and were being monitored, but were not persons of interest. He was last seen on Deer Park Lane in the Foxfire subdivision of Plantersville. And if you look on Google Earth images, you see that there's a ton of woods surrounding his home and a lot of open area as well. Summer Wells' home was more remote, but even still, when I look at the 2 locations via Google Earth, there's a lot of similarities in the terrain as far as I'm concerned. As of Friday afternoon yesterday, the family, immediate and extended, had been excluded as any persons of interest. And they said that the family had been having a really rough time with the amount of attention that they were receiving. Quote, "They're going through a difficult time right now, as you imagine. Social media is not their friend, and it's awful, the things that are being said." Unquote. Now, I saw what was being said, and I've talked heavily on this channel about people jumping to conclusions, making assumptions, making blanket statements about cases, and accusing people when it later turns out that they are, innocent. And so I concur. It's definitely was not pleasant, and I think what happens is the public focuses in on parents or a parent. They don't bother sharing the missing information because they think it's pointless and that there's no hope. They focus in on the relative or the parent rather than to spread that information to try to help the child. And I think because the media only does cover certain stories, we have it in our heads that usually if a child's missing, it's the parents. When, in reality, I read to you in my series about Summer Wells that actually, no, it's not usually the parents. And that makes sense when you look at the data, because we don't hear about all these other cases of children going missing. We only hear about some of them. So yeah, of course, the ones we're hearing, it always seems to be the parents. But when you look at the overall numbers, it's really not the parents that are the main people always involved in the case of their child missing. Now, Texas EquuSearch, which is an amazing organization, the founder, Tim Miller, said that this was one of the most difficult searches he's done in 21 years. And he's involved in a lot of cases I follow. And it was really wild to hear him say that, given that I've seen him involved in so many cases. And I actually thought that Summer's case was one of the most difficult for him, given the terrain surrounding Summer's home. Tim talked about how heavy the woods are in Christopher's area, and he said, quote, "I just can't see a 3-year-old going through stuff that heavy that fast, that searchers couldn't even have located him that night," unquote. And, that was his, feeling on the story, and almost comes across as possibly he was bordering on not really believing that he could have just walked through all this wooded area by himself. The sheriff, explained that they didn't need any more volunteers. They didn't want people to clog up the search or contaminate the search grid. And, this is common. They don't, they want to make sure that they're not overlooking an area. So they do a specific grid search so that they comb over everything and not miss anything. So they want to limit the amount of people who are helping so they can organize it properly. And authorities said that Christopher, liked to play in vehicles, so they searched, in vehicles, and they also searched through sheds and pools and other places that a 3-year-old would be good at hiding at. Now, what are the similarities with Summer's case? Well, the story goes that Summer also arrived home with her mother and grandmother, just like Christopher. And in both stories, they were unloading groceries, except Christopher vanished while they were unloading groceries, but Summer ended up doing some gardening after the groceries and then vanished. And both stories, the mother claimed the child was out of their sight for about 2 minutes. And I talked about Summer's mom saying 2 minutes in my series, and I said I felt that it was more of a figure of speech. Kind of like if I say to my husband, watch the kids, I'm running to the gas station for 5 minutes, when really it's 15 minutes. Or I say to somebody, I was just looking away for a second, when really it wasn't a second. You were really looking away for an entire minute. It's just a way to describe a period of time. Or it's also a way to downplay how long you were not paying attention, right? Or keeping track of your child, because you don't want people to think that you're being neglectful. So you're kind of like, I didn't see him for 2 minutes, when really it was 10 minutes, right? Because you don't want people to judge you for having the child out of your sight for X amount of time. The stories were similar and almost 4 months exactly apart from one another, but located over 1,000 miles away from each other. Summer still has not been found, and it's heartbreaking. I was very passionate about her story. But a miracle unfolded early afternoon today when Christopher Ramirez, 3 years old, after almost 4 full days outside alone, was located alive and safe, just dehydrated, located 5 miles from where he went missing. How incredible is that? We follow so many of these stories, at least I do, and they never seem to end well. But once in a blue moon, you get a case that just stuns you. I was shocked as I was pushing my cart around Walmart and I got the alert. I could not believe it. I'm like, he's 3 years old. How? How did he survive? So you're talking from Wednesday afternoon at 1:30 to this morning at about 11:15 they got the phone call. So that was the rest of the day on Wednesday, all of Wednesday night, all day Thursday, all of Thursday night, all day Friday, and all through the night until today. This 3-year-old survived. Unbelievable. A total miracle. He was found by a landowner out in a wooded area on FM 1486 near Highway 249 after authorities got a call at about 11:15 a.m. He appears to be in good health, and the toddler's mother was with him while he was checked out by paramedics. The actual sheriff said, quote, he's drinking lots of water, but he's good. He's alive, laughing, cutting up, crying. His mom is crying. He's in good shape, unquote. And Tim Miller from Texas EquiSearch said that it was a difficult, mission, and especially with the fact that they had few to no calls that came into the tip line. Quote, in my 21 years with EquiSearch, this was the second time we had a child like this. Today, this morning, I honestly gave up. But thank God, it's amazing. I got goosebumps. It's so amazing to see him and hear that loud cry. It was just unbelievable, unquote. So this is a man who has a lot of experience in cases like this, and even he, at some point this morning, was ready to kind of give up, right? And then they get that phone call, and to see that this child is alive and safe is just breathtaking, and even he's stunned by it. So the $1 million question is, what do we learn from this? To keep sharing, even when it doesn't seem like there's any hope. Study pictures of people who are missing in your area. Make mental notes and stay alert. And even if you see somebody and you're not 100% sure it is who you think it is, call the police. Let them come out and figure it out. And next lesson, and the most important lesson in my opinion, because it's something that I tend to preach on this channel to the point of probably annoying you, is this family went through hell from the public. People thought the mother or a close relative was involved. They hid out after the mother did a press conference on Thursday, and they no longer wanted to speak with the media because of how the public reacted to her press conference. Even today, on a post that you don't get to see often of this small little 3-year-old boy back in the arms of his mother alive, garnered nasty, awful comments. Now, thank goodness, most of the comments were of relief and people being thankful he was found. But you always got to have those few who, are set in their opinion, and they were set on it being a family member involved, and they just can't admit they were wrong. And they want to continue to say things like, it doesn't add up, it's sketchy, look at the parents, they probably dropped them off over there. Just ridiculousness. It's absolutely insane. So this is yet another case where somebody is accused and charged in the court of public opinion who did nothing wrong besides maybe letting the child out of their sight longer than they should have been. I mean, it can happen to any one of us. I understand that people were digging into the father of the child or the boyfriend, I forget which it was, and apparently he has a sketchy past or a criminal history, but they initially went after the mother first. And even if somebody has a sketchy past, yes, that can help paint a picture of their possible involvement, but that alone does not indicate they did anything. And that was the problem with Summer Wells' case, because both parents had a terrible past. And people couldn't look past that. They wanted to focus on the parents' past. And they refused to consider any other possibility other than these parents were involved with the child being missing. Now, we certainly should look at somebody's past and criminal history just like police do, but we shouldn't get stuck on it. You have some criminals who would never hurt their child. Then you have upstanding citizens with no history who have hurt their child, and vice versa. You need to analyze the entire case as a whole and not just get stuck on that one thing. I, for one, am beyond thrilled that this little boy is now home safe in his home tonight. It's a miracle. I considered, of course I did, of course I considered the parents might be involved. Of course. Especially as the days were going on, I'm like, I don't know, man. 3 years old out there for days? I wasn't ready to commit to a theory, though. And I'm glad he was found before I even had to commit to any type of theory. And final note is, when you see a missing poster, missing post, whatever the case may be, and if you have this thought that it's, been too long, or there's no way he's alive, or, the parents are involved, they must be involved, don't just scroll past because you had those thoughts. Share it. Because you never know until you know what happened. And until next time, I'll see you soon.